Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Bigger Than Race, exposure to all things truth, whether you like it or not, with unique perspectives from different beings from all walks of life. This is Bigger Than Race. Investigate truth on your own terms. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Bigger Than Race, Episode 2, Solutions to C-19 and Protest Aftermath. I'm your host, Brando. I have a special guest online, Cierra. How are you doing today?
Yo, what's up, Brando? I'm good. How are you doing?
Doing great. Everything is copacetic. So, with all...
Under the circumstances, right?
Very true. But, with all this going on, I know you have a lot of insightful information that could be shared with the public to help alleviate what is actually going on out there. And, it's bigger than race, but it's about race, but it's just not solely about race. You understand what I'm saying?
Right. For me, I think it's really important that we discuss solutions. So I think this will be a productive conversation all around for us to see where we can go, what conversations we can start about what will work to move us forward as a whole people.
Right. Yeah, and I think, the problem is people get caught up in the agenda of the race wars, which has been perpetuated for years, which was set up to divide and conquer us. And, I feel like if people really understood the agendas that are invisible and set up to orchestrate control over the masses, then I think we would be able to move forward in a more positive direction without a lot of this nonsense that's stirred up in the world to cause confusion, mayhem, uneasy emotions every time you see something on the news, because it's all honestly designed and orchestrated in order to control us. I mean, do you know there is a organization of all the top elites in the world that meet up and decide on what's going to happen in the world?
Right, exactly. They have their little table talks, and they definitely put their plans together, and the goal is to be essentially catch the people unaware, and oftentimes they achieve just that with all of the deceptive and really subtle ways that the agendas are played out against the people. It starts so simple and like innocent, like they use things that are generally viewed as entertainment in large part to get these agendas across. Like we talk about like dystopian societies, right? And how we see so many things watched or read playing out in society right now, like 1984. That was a book. I'm starting to think that it was George Orwell, right? He was put up to I feel like write that book specifically for this time. It's the likeness is too much to ignore, and I don't believe in coincidence. I stopped believing in coincidence when I was 12 years old. So I believe literally everything has a purpose and a reason, and nothing is accidental the way that, we see it today. So I think it's time for people to really open up their eyes and really check what they're taking in.
Absolutely. And just to add on to that, by spiritual law, they have to tell us what they're going to do before they do it. So in ways they do that is by putting what's going to come in cartoons or movies, or, you might just think of it as entertainment, but in actuality, they are predictively programming you to get you ready for what is to come.
Absolutely. They use magazines, food,
food.
What was in the first time you see the Impossible Burger, like, at Burger King or Beyond Meat at Dunkin', and people are missing the point. They're not seeing the direction things are going, you know?
Oh yeah, and just to add to that, people, they with their veganism and vegetarianism, like they'd rather eat. They go to the grocery store and look for the plant-based foods, but why not just eat the damn plants?
Precisely, and they also will use, so everyday celebrity influencers to push the plant-based agenda, and people still miss it. They look at it like, oh, this is really healthy. But true enough, why don't you go get a banana? Why don't you go get some lettuce? Why don't you chop a salad? Why are we out here picking up things that are still frozen, still processed? You know what I mean? And you don't know what's in it aside from what they decide to tell you. And then they have like code words for the code words of the ingredients. Like you don't know. So I mean, at this point, we need to be growing our own food. That's another solution we didn't necessarily discuss as yet, but that's another one that needs to be like written down. I feel like we all need to start getting our notebooks and our pens. So we're about to put you guys on to some solutions that we think would really be empowering and helpful. But first, I know we want to talk about some of the systems that are at play here and what these systems what they look like, and then what we need to replace those systems with, because we can't just take it out and leave it bare. Something has to fill the space.
Absolutely. So some of these bad systems, there are capitalism, racism, prison industrial complex, materialism, consumerism, maladaptive use of social media, mental health systems, food and water, GMO, etc., homeless, poverty, idolatry, formal education, and the list goes on and on. And
let me ask you a question, Brando. What do you think of these systems needs to be addressed, like right now, like sooner rather than later?
I would think racism. I would think materialism and consumerism. And I would think, I want to say social media, because, those are the three main things that they're utilizing to make us docile, also including the food and water.
And if I interject, I think one of the core things that they're using to keep the people docile is the mental health system. And I have, firsthand experience with being conditioned by the mental health system, simply because at the time I was extremely vulnerable, and I had some trauma from my childhood that affected me deeply. And when trauma goes untreated, you're gonna feel it. You're gonna feel it however many years later that it takes. And it doesn't mean that you're ill, but the mental health system will have you believe that you're ill, have you believing that you're so ill you need medicine for the rest of your life, and there'll be pill pushing until you can't say no, until you become dependent. And for me, I became so dependent on the medication that it stole years of my life. I was essentially stripped of my identity. I didn't know who I was, and I was worse off than I was before I was labeled ill, to the point where I had to literally claw my way back from the edge of whatever that was, the edge of that type of darkness, claw my way back from depression and suicidal ideation and all these things, and rip off those labels, which was not easy. It took me years to take those labels off of me. I made a decision that I wasn't going to be bipolar. I wasn't going to be depressed. I wasn't going to be suicidal. So for me, I realized that there are other options, that this psych medicine and psychology and all of this, it's purely a practice. And a lot of it, for instance, when they're telling you you're bipolar, how many people can say that somebody actually tested their brain for a chemical imbalance? I know I never got a test. No one ever checked to see what was going on with my neurology. No one.
I don't, just sorry to cut you off, but
Right.
just to add, I don't think I don't think they test anybody. I think what you said was, which the key was, the labels. The labels is what they use, and that's what people buy into that belief.
Right. So it's a lot, you know. That conditioning is a lot, and I think that it all ties in, you know, all the systems, and they result in conditioning and programming. And the only way to deprogram is to, like, we have to become aware. We have to be willing to see the truth for what it is. And the truth is sometimes ugly and it's painful. And I know for a lot of us, when we woke up, waking up was not necessarily like, you know, you wake up in the morning from your sleep and you're like, oh, you know, yay, you know, and then you have those mornings when you wake up and you're like, oh my gosh, I want to go back to sleep. That's how it
Right.
feels when you wake up to the reality that, you know, that we're in.
So I agree with you on all of that. But what are some starting solutions that we can dive into to better humanity, so we can get out of these bad systems?
Right, for sure. You know, I know we had a couple of solutions that we had spoken about, um, outside of the ones that we're gonna share. I know one thing we were talking about as far as like kind of like diffusing capitalism and consumerism a little bit is getting back to the barter system, and you know how essential that was for if you had rice and I had bread, I need your rice and you need my bread. We're just gonna swap that out, you know. Or I have a garden, you need some veggies or fruits or whatever, and I need somebody to cut my lawn. Boom, boom. Everybody gets what they need. You know, things of that nature. Trading your skills, like, oh, you can write, and this other person over here can edit videos. Now you guys are there's an exchange, and now you guys are, you know, furthering whatever your cause is together. So that's one thing, and I know there was another solution, like a starting solution. What was that solution that you mentioned, Brando? The first
Well,
solution.
the first solution I suggested was people need to start investigating, because people play into agendas that are set up for us to fail, and we don't form our own perspective. We take the narrative that the mainstream media has already pre they've already preordained this in their top elite meetings, and they play it out to us, and we just take it. We don't form our own perspective. We don't look for the truth, because a lot of times there's blatant flaws in everything that they're presenting, but people can't connect the dots because they've been so brainwashed, and they think the mainstream media is a trusted source. But
Exactly.
if you look at the top six companies that owned these webs of media companies, they're owned by the same people. So how could they be a trusted source?
Exactly. Exactly. And you see, people are afraid to pull the veil back, but the funny thing is, the veil is already back. You know, and that lets you know how sleepy people can be, to the point where the truth is here for you to see, and you just refuse, and you just cannot. You know what I'm saying? And
Mm-hmm.
another thing that you mentioned is, you know, how all this goes back to predictive programming and those meetings that are had and the things that are discussed, and how they're gonna tell you what to think with the media. They're gonna tell you what to feel, and a big piece of that is group think, where, like you said, they want people not to have an original thought. They want everyone to think the same. So if they can get a narrative in front of people and get the majority to think like that, and it's not progressive in any way for communities or the population, then they're winning, you know?
Absolutely. And just to add to that, like, when it comes to, they control even your emotions. They put key, like if you look at the Ahmaud Arbery case,
Trigger words,
this last case, George Floyd, and
right?
there's another one,
Breonna
Trayvon,
Taylor, that's another one.
Breonna Taylor.
Don't
There,
forget Breonna
there's
Taylor.
Breonna Taylor, absolutely, and Trayvon Martin's. They have specific attorneys that are you know in fraternities, and these are the guys that are supposed to tell you how the Black community should feel
Right.
about this situation. You know what I'm saying? And the crazy thing is, they are just playing on our emotions, and we can't even see it. So you have to stop believing everything you see on the news without fact checking it or getting another perspective for yourself. Okay, that's number one. We got to think about why they are sharing this particular narrative at this particular moment, because there's a lot of things that are going on behind the scenes that they do not want you to know.
Exactly. And there's nothing that they don't do with automotive. Everything has a motive. And 9 times out of 10, or I'll even say 10 times out of 10, it's not for your benefit.
Nope, absolutely not. And we also need to ask, what is the story? What is this story telling me? How is it affecting my psyche? Am I starting to see that I have prejudices towards certain groups of people because of what they're telling me?
Right. And here's a prime example of that. I've seen this happen several times where Black people are minding their own business. It's happening in New York a lot. The gentleman who was in the park bird watching, he's an avid bird watcher. He's very well known in the community, Black gentleman. And this woman, this white woman, was, in her white privilege, and she felt the need to get on the phone and call the cops and make up this blatant lie that he was threatening her when he was literally minding his own business, telling her to put her dog on a leash because when the dogs are out, the birds won't come and sit. And that's the purpose of that area of the park, was to bird watch. So he just suggested putting the dog on a leash so he can enjoy his time out there. And not to mention, 9 times out of 10, that's a rule: put your dog on a leash. You know what I'm saying? So she made a big fit, and in order to protect himself, he had to obviously record her. And she was very angry. The most distraught person there was her dog, because she was basically strangling it because she didn't put it on the leash like she should have. And anyway, the black gentleman had no issues, and she basically got in trouble. I think she ended up losing her job for doing that. And another issue,
good for her.
Yeah, a Black woman. She's a healthcare worker, minding her business. On one of the she was, out by her neighborhood public area again. Another white woman who, she was like European or something. She wasn't from America, but she got on the phone, and they were very far away from each other. She got on the phone, and she's saying that this Black woman is threatening her and all these things. And this woman is literally just sitting, minding her business. You can't even be Black in a park. You can't be Black in a public space. And, that was also recorded for her own safety. And the cop just walked away. He walked away on the white woman. It was like, basically, like, don't call us for this stuff, So it goes back to that. They're watching media. They're consuming media that continues to present this energy for racial division, and people don't even know why. It's not like it's not even logical what they're doing. It doesn't even make any sense. And they fail to realize this because they're just consuming the narratives without investigation.
Absolutely. And that's going to bring me to solution 2. But before I get to solution 2, I want to say this, and this is the jump back on the labels. See, me in my household, my daughter, we don't associate Black with our skin, because if you look at me, I'm Godiva brown. My daughter looks like a piece of caramel. Okay. So I'm not Black, nor is she. I'm brown. She's light brown. A Black is a tire. Okay, there's a clear, distinct difference between brown and Black. And see, with these labels that they have, systematically programmed us to believe and to associate with, I have an issue with. We're not Black. You're not white. You're peach.
That even goes along with the whole, like you said, like they've made these words mean something, and we know race is a social construct. But what do you think of when you think of dark, right? I mean, Black. You think of darkness. You think of evil. You think of like devoid of good, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then when you think of white, what do you think of? Purity.
Angel. Yep.
Right. You think of purity. Then you recall their whole basically program and agenda to make Jesus Christ white. You know what I'm saying? It goes back to all these things that they have created, and people don't ask, well, who said that this means this? Like, why is white pure? Like, why is that? What is white though? White is the absence of light, is it not?
Absolutely.
Or is it, or was it, like, correct me if I'm wrong? It's white's the absence of of color, right?
Correct.
Okay, because I'm thinking back to like art class and when we used
Well,
to
yeah,
have to
because
paint, you know,
absolutely. I mean, when you look at a blank canvas, what color
black.
is it?
Right, it's white. Black is essentially like all of the colors that you can't necessarily see them, but
You can get all colors from black with just mixing it in. And if you want to go a little deeper, all of the other races that are derived on planet come from the melanated skin.
peaceful. Right, exactly.
But see, they don't want you to know that.
And I always ask my mother, I said, Mother, how come is everything white? I said, why is Jesus white with blonde hair and blue eyes? Why is the Lord's Supper all white men? Angels are white, Pope and Mary and even the angels. I said, Mother, when we die, do we go to heaven? She said, naturally we go to heaven. I said, well, what happened to all the black angels they took the pictures? I said, oh, I know. If the white folks was in heaven too, then the black angels were in the kitchen preparing the milk and honey. She said, listen, you quit saying that, boy. I was always curious, and I always wondered why I had to die to go to heaven. Why I couldn't have pretty cars and good money and nice homes now? Why do I have to wait till I die to get milk and honey? And I said, Mama, I don't want no milk and honey. I like steaks and I said, milk and honey is a laxative anyway. Do they have a lot of bathrooms in heaven? So anyway, I was always curious. I always wondered why. You know, Tarzan is the king of the jungle in Africa. He was white. White man. I saw this white man swinging around Africa with a diaper on, hollering. Oh! Do you all see Tarzan over here? Did you see Tarzan? And all the Africans, he's beating them up and breaking the lion's jaw. And here's Tarzan talking to the animals, and the Africans been there for centuries, and he can't talk to the animals. Only Tarzan can talk to them. I always wondered why Miss America was always white. All the beautiful brown women in America, beautiful suntans, beautiful shapes, all type complexions, but she always was white. And Miss World was always white. And Miss Universe was always white. And then they got some stuff called White House cigars, White Swan soap, King White soap, White Cloud tissue paper, White Rain hair rinse, White Tornado flow wax. Everything was white. And the angel food cake was the white cake, and the devil food cake was the chocolate cake. I said, Mama, why is everything white? I always wondered, you know, and the president lived in the White House. And Mary had a little lamb, his feet as white as snow and Snow White. And everything was white. Santa Claus was white. And everything bad was black. The little ugly duckling was the black duck, and the black cat was the bad luck. And if I threaten you, I'm going to blackmail you. I said, Mama, why don't they call it white mail? They lie too. I was always curious. And then this is when I knew something was wrong.
But this goes back to solution 2 and why we need to decrease our screen time. And that goes from the TV to social media, any form of media, because we have to get to a point where we can, filter what we are watching and taking in. We got to spend more time in nature, creating, grounding our energy. How many times have you ever went to a park and were barefooted?
Right.
Probably not a lot, because you might be conscious of your feet because they're not the best, or you just feel like it's icky. But as a kid, we ran freely.
True, we did. We had no qualms about getting our feet dirty.
No, we used to run in everything.
Feet to the earth. Yes,
we need to get to know the one true God. And you see, I think with social media and all this confusion and all of this information that is being fed at us, that we don't even spend time with getting to know the true God, which is within us. We're so focused on the consumption of what's next. They're about to be on Instagram Live. Oh, we gotta watch this battle versus this battle.
Right.
They have created special events even during quarantine to still keep you preoccupied.
Right, exactly. And did anybody wonder how they decided to just all of a sudden we're in quarantine and they've rolled out massive amounts of commercials. You think they just did that when we got into quarantine? Of course not. Those things have been in the arsenal, waiting for them to pull the trigger. Like,
exactly.
Come on. We have to wake up. And then consider this piece. Social distancing has been talked about up to 2 or 3 years prior, with a lot of these films that came out just before quarantine. The film Everything Everything. The girl was isolated in her house from an illness her mother said that she had, and she never left the house. She was permanently socially isolated.
A label.
Right. And then we have 5 Feet Apart with the 2 teens that had cystic fibrosis. And because they're not supposed to spread their bacteria to one another, they're masks and they have to stay 6 feet apart, right? But they chose 5 feet apart. I think it was because they wanted to at least, kind of rebel a little bit. So, but they were always reminded, 6 feet apart at all times, 6 feet apart.
And
where did you hear that?
Isn't that number 6 feet? Even didn't they say that in this quarantine, in this social distancing?
Yeah,
6 feet.
6.
And why do they always use the number 6 or the 3? Why?
Right.
And you know what? What they're getting us ready for is they want to introduce artificial intelligence, robots. So the social distancing comes into play because you're not going to, they don't want you to have too much human contact. So they're going to give you a damn robot. And that is going to be your human contact. They're going to replace it with a robot. And I'm not saying everybody's going to buy into it, but they're going to slowly roll it out. Because it's happening.
Right. And a lot of people were also speculating with the being 6 feet apart, it's easier for them to do, facial recognition, use that kind of software on us because we're more grouped up. It's difficult for them to, identify you, and then we also got to worry about, what clothes are you wearing? What are you putting on your body? What clothes are you putting on your kids? Because they have all types of symbolism in clothing these days. Like you can go into what is it, Zoomies? I'm sure it's not the only store, but you can go into Zoomies, probably Hot Topic, but Zoomies definitely you can find Masonic jewelry, rings, satanic symbolism on clothing like the Baphomet. I know Thrasher made a shirt with the Baphomet on it. And Zoomies also has like an OG Mason gold ring. Like we'll put the links in the description so you can see it for yourself. Like we got to be careful about what we're taking in on all sides.
You even got to be careful about your family, because
right.
Just to add, I didn't even know that my family was a Masonic family. Like they're all in these Greek organizations. I got uncles I didn't know that were Masons until recently, and I'm like, what the hell?
Mm-hmm.
I said, it makes sense why I know the information that I know.
Right.
So you got to be careful. And I know we're going to be wrapping up soon, but I want to touch into solution 3 about being careful who you follow. You got to know their allegiance, because they could be leading you into a number of agendas that you are not you're not aware of.
Exactly.
You got to understand, these celebrities have these followings for a specific reason, and it's not to make you laugh. Yeah, it's to make you laugh in the front and entertain you, but behind the scenes they are taking you to a place that you are not really understanding where you're going,
right?
Because they are purposely put out there to put out certain agendas to the masses, and if they steer off, they can be sacrificed, they can be killed. And now that's another story,
right? That's another episode.
Deep. You know what I mean? But you have to be careful, because you don't know where these people are coming from. I stopped giving my power over to celebrities a long time ago, because I realized these celebrities, they ain't shit. And I'm not saying all of them, but I've met quite a few. And the ones that you used to look up to, if you know who they really were behind the scenes, trust me, you would change your opinion of them very quickly.
Right.
And Cat Williams has put it out in his comedy. That's why you don't really see him that much, because he speaks truth. And anybody that goes against their agendas, they are against.
Yep. So they'll pull your card in a minute, get blackballed, and that's what. Then you wonder, where did they go to?
Yeah, they didn't play into the agenda that they wanted, and they end up getting knocked off, or you don't see them anymore because they didn't want to partake in any rituals or anything like that. So you need to be very careful. I don't care who makes you laugh, how entertaining they are. You got to understand, if they got 20 million followers, they got 20 million followers because they're leading you down the wrong hole.
Exactly. It's not for nothing.
It's not for nothing.
Yeah,
so their allegiance, you have to understand, this domain, this planet Earth, is Satan's world.
Mm-hmm.
Everything on this earth is Satan's right now, until the Legion comes and rectifies all of this evil that has been going on. But they don't want you to know that. They even will make Hollywood movies and spin the narrative from the real truth. So you will think that the Legion is coming here to fight against the humans, when in actuality the Legion is coming here to take over and get rid of all of the evil governments that have been running the world down into an endless pit.
Right, and even just to add to that, salvation comes through Jesus Christ. There's only one way to salvation. So I pray anyone who's listening gets to know Jesus Christ as their Lord and Savior. And even just to touch on these solutions really quick and recap, what was the first solution?
The first solution was start investigating your own truth.
Right, and solution number 2 we discussed was intentionally increasing your screen time all around, and getting out into nature and getting in touch with self and with God.
Yeah.
And the third solution was to, be careful of who you follow, know their allegiance, and be aware, because they can be leading you into a number of agendas.
Absolutely. And you can follow us because we want to lead you to the truth. And that is why Bigger Than Race was created, because it is bigger than race. Cierra, I want to thank you for joining us on this episode. I definitely would love to have you come back. I'm sure the people would want to hear you very, very soon in the future.
Thank you so much for having me. I would love to come back another time.
Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Bigger Than Race. I'm your host, Brando. Please remember, investigate truth on your own terms.